In this video I'm going to show you how to use the Elegoo 2.8 TFT LCD touchscreen. So I used this LCD touchscreen in my reflow plate project, check it out if you haven't already, and some of you asked me if I could do a tutorial on how I did the interface. And of course, here it is. So in this video I'm going to talk about the basic structures I used for this project. And here I am in the Arduino IDE 2.0. Let's bring in the display so that you can see it. And let's start with the code. I programmed the basic structure that you can use. And now let's have a look at it. Here we have 3 libraries, but I'm using it with an Arduino Mega, as you can see right here. So I have to use modified versions of these libraries. You can download it from the link in the video description, so that shouldn't be a problem. Then we have a bit of pin definitions. They're not really interesting. I don't recommend changing any of these settings. Just take it and copy it into your code. But what's interesting are these code lines right here, because you have already noticed that there are colors: black, blue, red, green, and hello is not a real color. These colors are used in the sketch later on, and these colors have individual color codes, which you can see right here. And if you now say, I want a special color, I want exactly these shades, I recommend a website called HTML Color Codes. I will put a link in the video description, because here you can find the hex codes of every color. For example, let's go with a greenish blue and say I want it that way, and now we have a color code right here that I copy and paste it in. I paste it right here because this hello is just an example I programmed in to show you that you can name the color anything you want. But what's important that you write and X and then your color code. So this is the color code I just copied from this website right here. Then a bit more library stuff, we don't have to worry about that. And we are in the white setup. Here we have a TFT reset. We begin to talk to the display and we have a rotation. It's important that you write TFT in front of everything that has something to do with the display. This rotation here, I like to use it with rotation 1, rotates the whole screen in the code. So the rotation of 0 is the default rotation, looks like that. The rotation of 1 looks like that, 2 like that, and 3 like that. I always like to work with 1 or 3, but let's go with 1. And now we can start programming our display. So let's begin by filling the whole screen. And for that, I use a command called TFT fill screen. And now we can type in a color. For example, we don't want it to be black, but we want it to be blue. So I say this should be blue, and then I hit upload. And you can see that the screen turned blue. I can do this with other colors as well. For example, I say yellow. So I fill it with yellow. And that's a pretty nice background color to show all the other icons. Speaking of icons, you don't have to program every single pixel, because in the libraries there are pre-programmed codes. You can find them on this Adafruit article. I will put a link to that in the video description. And they are explained in these little boxes right here with an example. So let's start by draw line. I just copy that, and here I say TFT dot and import it. And here you can see that there are units, but we don't need them. They are just there to replace our coordinates. Because if you have a look at the picture, you can see that there is an x0, y0 and an x1, y1 coordinate. So basically what you're doing, you are setting the coordinates for the end and start point of your line. In the Arduino IDE, I can just go ahead and say I want to have it to start at 10 and 10, and I want it to end at 100, and here at 50. And now I can set a color. To see it, I just choose black. So we have the start coordinates x, y, we have the end coordinates x, y, and we have the color. Now let's upload it. And now you can see that there is a little black line, but it's coming from the lower right corner, and that's actually not right because I programmed it from the upper right corner. I want to have the 0, 0, 0 position in the upper left corner, so I rotate the screen by 3. And for example, let's extend this to 200 and hit upload. And now the screen should be rotated by 180 degrees. So the black line comes from here and goes to there. And as you can see, it worked. Now let's have a look at the next function, which is the draw rectangle function. And here I just copy me that real quick and say TFT dot draw rectangle. Now I want this rectangle to start at the point 100 and 50. And now this is special because I'm not programming the endpoint, but I'm programming the length. So this is how many pixels the rectangle should be in X direction. And here I choose 150. And here we choose the same for the Y direction. And I say I want it to be 80 pixels. So what this actually means, I have my X and my Y for the starting coordinates, and then 150 in X and 80 in Y. In pixel coordinates, that would mean that my endpoint is at X 250, so this plus this, and my Y coordinates are at 130, so 50 plus 80. Now I have to choose a color, and here I, for example, say I want red, so I copy red in here and say upload. And now we have this red square. But there is another function for the rectangle, because we can also fill it. For that we just replace the draw with an fill, hit upload, and the rectangle is filled red. Now let's have a look at the next function, which is the draw circle function. For this I just copy this code. In here I say TFT dot draw circle, and here I set the middle coordinates, because now, as you can see in this example right here, you set the middle point of the circle, then you program the radius, and then the circle is drawn. So now let's try this. Let's go to 100. Let's go to 100. And now we have to define the radius. So if you want a circle with a diameter of 50 pixels, you have to choose a radius worth 25. So I say 25 pixels for the radius, and the diameter will be 50 pixels. Now I choose a color, I choose magenta, copy it, paste it, upload it, and we have a little magenta circle. The area inside the circle is now 100 plus 25 and 100 minus 25. So it goes from 75 to 125 in X direction, and from 75 to 125 in Y direction. There's also the fill function for the circle, so I just say fill circle. And now we have a big purple circle on our screen. So the next function, they call it rounded rectangles. So I copy that, and the system is always the same. I write tft.draw round rectangle, and here I set the coordinates like I would do it for the rectangle. So I programmed my rectangle at 150. Now I'm going to program it to 200 and 100, and I say I want it to be 100 long. Let's change this to 50, and I want it to have a height of 60 pixels. And now we have the radius we know from our circle function, and this radius is the radius the corners are rounded with. So you actually have to imagine that from the side line there is the radius to this point, and then the corners are rounded. So I say I want a radius of, I don't know, 10 pixels, and I want it to be in the color, let's choose a color you can see really good, maybe like cyan. Paste it and upload it, and now you can see that there is a rounded rectangle on the screen, and I can also use it with the fill function, upload it, and now there is a filled rectangle with rounded corners. So the next function we are going to take a look at is the triangle function right here. I again copy it, say tft.draw triangle, and here I have to set 3 coordinates because it's actually an x0 coordinate, and this is the start point, and you have an x1 y1 and x2 y2. So from this starting point we draw a line to here, and then their line will be drawn from here to here. Now let's try this. As my starting point I want to have it at x50 y 200. Then I want the next at, let's say, x50 and y 240. And now let's hear x100 and y 220, and for the color I choose, let's choose my hello color so that you can see this as an example as well. Just copy in hello, upload it, and now in the lower left corner there is a little triangle. I can also use the fill function, so I upload it, and now there is this little green blue rectangle at the lower left corner. And that are the basic elements you actually need, and I use them in my reflow plate project to draw the iron and everything else. But now let's say that you want to write a text. So here you have to make an actual code block that starts with tft.set cursor, and here you type in the x and y coordinates where you want your text to be, so where the text should start. For example, I choose 115, 60, I don't know. And the next line is the color. Here you just type tft.setTextColor, and now let's say I want to have it in black again, so there is a nice contrast. black. Then you have to set the text size. For that you just type tft.set text size, and here you can choose, let's go with 3 so that it's nice and big, or even 4, let's go with 4 so that you can see it really good. And last but not least, you can write your text. And here simply type in tft.print and then you write your text. For example, subscribe, and then you just upload it. Spelling mistake in cursor, I'm sorry. And now the Arduino looks. Okay, the cursor is set to these coordinates, the text color is black, the text is size 4, and the word is subscribe. So let's have a look at the screen. And it's so big that you can hardly read it, but there stands the word subscribe. So please subscribe to my channel. So now I just programmed in the void setup. And that actually means that these shapes and text I printed here are not going to be changed in the code later on. But let's say you have a sensor and you want to display the sensor data. So you have to program it in the void loop. To show it as an example, I filled the screen yellow. Let's bring in the screen. And now we can add our variable. Let's say we have an integer. And this integer we call a, and a equals 0. And here we add a serial begin 9600. We can talk to the PC and have a look how a behaves. And now let's bring in the void loop the variable. For this I use the text function I showed you earlier. So first I have to set the cursor. Let's set this to 100 and 100. Then we set the text color. I want it to be black so that you can see it on the yellow background. Then I need the text size. Let's go with 5. And we need the text for that tft.print. And now we type in a. So it will print the variable a. If we add this little thing right here, the a is just printed as the letter a. But we want it to be as a variable so it changes. So we have to use a. And now let's say we have a equals a plus 1. So every time the code cycles through, a gets larger by 1. And we want serial.println of a, so that we can have a look at a in the serial monitor. And we want a delay of, let's say, 500 milliseconds. So the code needs 500 milliseconds. Now let's upload this. And there I forgot an N. And now there's this big black rectangle on our screen. So to fix that, I use let's call it a dirty trick, because I use the fill rectangle function. So I write tft.fill_rect, and then I want it to start at, let's say, 50 and 100, and I want it to be 100 width and 100 or 200 height, and then I want it to be yellow. So let's copy yellow in there and set the brackets. Now what's happening here is a is printed, for example, let's call it 0 is printed. Then the code starts over again. The yellow rectangle is printed over the 0, so you can't see the 0, and then a is printed as 1, and so on and so on. So now let's test it. And as you can see, it's counting and you can read every single digit. Now there is a black line because this is outside the rectangle. Let's make the rectangle 200, and we can make it a bit faster, so it's counting really fast. And I use this trick on my reflow plate as well. Now for the touch function, I want to, for example, program a little button. I want to hit a button and then something happens. So let's program a button. And there we have our button. You can, of course, use another shape, like I use the rectangles in my reflow plate project to increase or decrease, and you can set another text function. It's just so to show you how you can set up a button. So now we want that something happens when we hit the button, so I need a bit of basic code. I already programmed it right here. First it sets XM and YP as an output, then it looks where you touch the touchscreen, then it prints these coordinates and it maps the coordinates to the coordinates on the screen. And now let's upload this. Actually, you don't have to worry about that part, just put it in your code. And now you can see nothing changed on the screen because it's all running in the background. So now we want that something really happens, so we need an if sentence. So we say if p.x is smaller than something and p.x is bigger than something and p.y is smaller than something and p.y is bigger than something, something should happen. So we have this brackets right here, and let's say that we want to print something, we want to print a word, so we say, and we print a word and close it. And now we have to open our serial monitor, and here we see that there are values. And when I touch the screen, those values change. And we have to type them in right here. So we go to p.x smaller than something. And now I take something sharp, like a pencil, and hit one of the corners of my rectangle. And there we had 675. Now let's hit the other corner. And that was 450. So we have to change it to 450 and 675. That means that px bigger than 450 and px smaller than 75, that any value between those 2 points counts as hit. And we have to do the same thing for our y values. So here we have 560, 388, again we change it, 388, 560, and the same thing for here. So any value between 388 and 560 will be counted as pressed. And now we actually made a rectangle, and any point in this rectangle is counted as pressed. And the rectangle goes from 450 to 675 and from 388 to 560. And now when we hit the rectangle, the word subscribe pops up. So now it's important that you set the if sentence after the TS point in the code, and that you put pin mode XM and PM as an output into the if sentence. And then you can upload it. And now let's hit the button. And you can see there is the word subscribe. So as you can see, working with the LQ 2.8 TFT LCD is not that hard. If you like this video, then feel free to like, share and subscribe. Here are videos, here find my channel, so have a nice day and see you soon.